Hello and welcome to Accelerate. I am Matt Stone. This is the podcast where we encourage and inspire CEOs, founders, and visionaries on their big leap journeys. We talk about the stories and strategies that will help you accelerate toward your big leap destination with purpose, humility, an open mind, commitment to growth, and recognition that the way we get there is at least as important as where we end up. And I'm so delighted that you've tuned in today. And it is Monday, August 8th, 2022, and welcome to another exciting summer week. And this is, of course, the podcast for people who are making change. And that change does not wait for the fall. It happens now. So whatever you're thinking about, I hope that you got some clarity over the weekend. I ran across something that I think that is really a powerful study. And let me just bring it up here so I can read it to you. It's actually an article from a couple of years ago, but it's citing some research by Stephen Levitt at, I believe, University of Chicago. The headline was, "Can't decide on a big life change? People who change are overwhelmingly more content than those who don't," study says. And basically what happened is that the researcher, University of Chicago economist Stephen Levitt, conducted this study that ultimately concluded that a good rule of thumb in decision-making is whenever you cannot decide what you should do, choose the action that represents a change. Now, what's interesting is how they did it. So they asked 22,511 people to make a decision on a dilemma based on the outcome of a coin toss. So if they flip one side, they make a change, they go for it. If they flip the other side, they stick with status quo. And what was interesting was in the first couple of months after the coin flip, the status quo flippers reported being pretty happy. But by the 6-month mark, they were really not nearly as happy as those who flipped the coin and it landed on the change side. That it was pretty clear that people who went for the change, whatever it was, ended up being happier. The questions ranged in seriousness from should I start my own business? Should I propose? Should I grow facial hair? For the coin toss, heads meant that change and tails meant not. And it says the study found that for important decisions like quitting a job or ending a relationship, individuals who were told by the coin toss to make a change are more likely to make a change, more satisfied with their decisions, and happier 6 months later than those whose coin toss instructed maintaining a status quo. In other words, people who made the change were more content than people who didn't. Indeed, study participants who made a change were more likely to say they would make the same decision if they had to do it all over again. And that was true for virtually every kind of decision. So I just, there's a little bit more here. It's just such a reminder that while on one hand, one can fear, getting away from the status quo, even if you're not happy with the status quo, there's a lot of fear around change, around taking a big step. When you turn over your power essentially to quote unquote chance with this coin flip, for example, if you go with the change, as scary as it is, you have made some kind of progress. And I suspect, and it doesn't go into this kind of depth because I don't think they did the kind of follow-up you'd need to do, but let's say you were getting out of a relationship or getting into a relationship and you're happy that you did it. And maybe 6 months later, that relationship didn't work out or, whatever. You can't predict all the permutations of things that are going to happen along the way, the other people you're going to meet. So, for example, if you flipped a coin and decided to change your job, maybe 6 months later, the new job that you took, you don't actually like anymore. But that doesn't mean you weren't happy with changing things up in the first place, that leaving the past, whatever you were doing before, changing that up, even if what you went to didn't work out in the way that you hoped it would, you can still be very satisfied with making a change. And I think there's something in all of us that feels better about ourselves. There's a lot of self-worth tied up in doing things that are for our own learning and growth and development. And that's what change really represents here. Status quo sort of represents not growing in a sense. Now, that doesn't mean you change your job and change your relationships out like your underwear. That is not at all what we're recommending here. But you need to be in some kind of process of making some kind of significant change kind of all the time. Because if you're not, this is how I read it, you're essentially, what status quo represents is a lack of growth. And lack of growth is deadly. Because we're not actually there is no such thing as actually status quo. You're either growing towards something or you're receding. You're diminishing. It really isn't staying the same. It's like muscles. If you stop using your muscles, they shrink. You might have some remnants of your old muscle mass, but they're there, but they're a little bit saggier. So you need to keep working out, and you can't do the same workout forever. You got to just, change it up. Increase the intensity here, decrease it here, try more stretching, adjust with your age and your body limitations and injuries, etc. Well, same thing with these other areas. So fascinating article. I will put the link to the article. It appeared on CNBC.com, I believe, but then they have a reference to the actual study itself. It's just an abstract. You got to pay to get the actual research. But nonetheless, I think it is probably one of the more valuable lessons to keep in mind in all of this, which is change is generally better, generally leads to more happiness than not making those changes. And so if you're on the fence, flip a coin and tell yourself, if it's heads, I'm going to change. And if it's tails, I'm going to change. Rig the game in your favor and make the change, whatever it is. I also recommend to get help doing it. You're not alone. Get help with that change, whether it's me or someone else in your life. There's lots of people available to you to help you process that and make you feel a little bit more secure in doing it, because of course there's risk in everything. And you know what? We never calculate the risk of not changing. That risk is huge, and I think the study backs that up. So as we begin another week in the heart of this summer, when a lot of great contemplation can happen, as many people are out on vacation and schedules are a little bit lighter in some respects for a lot of folks, not for everybody. It's a great opportunity to reflect on what kind of change you want to take into this coming season and into the next year. All right. So if you're contemplating a change, another great resource for you is a readiness assessment at mattstone.co. Take the readiness assessment and get a sense of where your mindset's at right now in terms of being prepared to make that change. And also, of course, meet up with us on Twitter at MattStoneCo, at MattStoneCo, where I post announcements about the podcast and other information. And as always, I'm really grateful that you are tuning into this podcast. If you find value in the podcast, I just ask you to share it, like it, subscribe it, review it, and share it. That's actually the most important thing. Get it out there. We're seeing an increase in listenership. And at this stage of the game, when we're very small and very early on, a little bit of change makes a huge difference. So we want to keep that momentum. So please, please, please share this with folks that you care about and want to support, and we'll build a great and vibrant win-win community out of this. So I will be back tomorrow with hopefully something more of value for you. And until then, thank you again for listening, and bye-bye for now.